Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. I will be sitting in the host chair today because I have a very special guest with me. Ash is a leadership advisor, speaker, entrepreneur, and author of several books, including Public Speaking Secrets of Silicon Valley Executives. You got to give that one a read.
Yes.
Today's episode is going to explore leadership influence and the art of public speaking at its highest levels and how to become a better leader and a master of your own craft. Ash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mo.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm excited to have you today. You are all things leadership and influence and mastery, which is what my audience is all about. And so before I get to some of my other questions, why don't you tell my audience where you came from, how you got to where you are today, and how you have become such an influential person in this space?
Absolutely. So I come originally from Egypt. I was going to become an English language teacher, which I did for a few years. And then I started studying linguistics, and that led me to get a Fulbright scholarship to come to the US. And I have been here since 1993, where working in corporate America really got me interested in how language, which sort of very related to the study of linguistics, how language that we speak makes a huge difference, not only for our own career progression, but also in helping others. And that's essentially how I got into what I'm doing today in terms of leadership advisory services and coaching, working with a lot of financial services companies, management consulting, and then many high-tech companies here in California, Oracle, Cisco, Salesforce, and a number of others, has been instrumental in driving a lot of the learning that really formed the frameworks and the body of knowledge that I tap into today as I coach leaders in different companies.
Ash, looking back, what leadership lesson do you wish that you would have learned earlier?
I think the one about making sure that you find excitement in what you do very early on, because I think a lot of the time we may think into the mundane of I just need to pay the bills, which is many of us, of course, we need to cover that base. But the other piece is the excitement level and the passion that you bring to what you do makes a big difference, because then all of a sudden you can actually recruit a lot of helpers because they see that you're passionate about what you're doing, and that highly likely with that passion, you'll do much better than someone else who's just doing it because.
Yeah, I love it. And Ash, you've said that storytelling is a leader's most powerful tool. Why does story matter so much when we want to be people of influence?
Stories matter because one of the best things that happen when you're telling a story, you actually get emotional to some extent, because a lot of the time it is something that has resonated with you, has left a mark with you, and you tend to actually slow down when you're telling a story. And a lot of the time, I was just on a coaching call with a client from Cisco. She basically said that she's starting to consciously slow down her speaking pattern, because a lot of the time we think, oh, I have to achieve so much today. I have to get this done. I need to come in and show everybody that I'm tough, that I am just basically working off the checklist. But what really makes a big difference is if you actually take a moment, slow down, and connect with the audience. And the story is one of those best tools, because all of a sudden you are with them in that story, and mirroring starts to happen and people start to lean in because, of course, having watched many movies and read so many novels, people are so much interested in what is exactly that's going to happen next. And once you actually get them wanting to know what happens next, that's when you can bridge over to the main message that you want to deliver. And that's really what happens as I coach leaders on storytelling. It's very effective in helping them get their point across by virtue of the story that they have told.
What's one practical way that a leader can start using storytelling today?
I would say the best thing, and I see this in many leaders, a lot of the time, in some respects, we're afraid to actually open up. And we're afraid that people will find out that we're scared, that we don't have experience. But I encourage everyone listening to us to go to the other side of that bridge where you open up and let people know, you know what? I am scared as I have never before been scared. This is a big project for us. And just open up and tell them that that is the case, because that's what's going to give them a chance to say, you know what? Me too. Me too. And then all of a sudden, this is not about me anymore. This is really more about us finding the courage that we need to move forward. So as much as leaders then show a little bit of vulnerability, that what they are experiencing is part of them being human. The fact that they are impacted by the change and they feel that this is a big project, this is a big initiative, that they are actually scared because they don't know what's going to happen a few weeks from now, a few months from now. But then they remind everybody that, you know what, we've been there before. This is not the first time. This is not our first rodeo. And the passion and the determination that we have been able to tap into in the past is that's what's going to help us with this initiative that we're working on now. And that's really where as I mentioned to you, when we slow down, we remember, wait a second, we actually did something similar a few years ago. Because we are so into, oh, I just want to get this done and that done, we're forgetting the fact that all of us have history. And the first thing we have to do is honoring the history. When we honor the history, one of those things that we do when we honor the history is we actually acknowledge the amount of work and determination and grit that got us here. Because even here now is yesterday's tomorrow. And we forget the fact that we've made it here now gives us enough grounding and power and determination to move forward.
Ash, leaders are often told that they need executive presence. How do you define that, and why does that matter?
We define it. It does matter because I think a lot of the time when you and I, when we are meeting with someone else and we feel that somehow they are confident in their own skin, nothing is ruffling them. They are very balanced in their approach. Again, their piece of speaking is slow and not too slow, but they are able to have a conversation with us and not feel that you could basically kind of push their buttons and get them upset very quickly. So there's a lot of composure in the mix there. So we basically say that executive presence consists of competence, passion, and gravitas. And of course, the competence piece comes from the experience that we have. And if we don't have it, now we have a lot of AI tools that can help us prepare like we've never prepared before. But I think the one thing that shows up for me as I coach a lot of clients is this piece about self-confidence. And a lot of the time, it's the conversation that we have in our own head. So what we want to do first is sort of quiet all of that down because your audience has no clue. They don't really have any clue that you're having all this stuff going on in your head. So the best thing that you need to do is let them know what we are here to discuss, share with them what are the challenges, what are the risks, but also share with them what the determination is and be willing to slow your pace. Because again, a lot of the time we feel people want a meeting. I just want to get done with my presentation and get out of there. Right. And
Yeah.
I coach leaders on you have to shift all of these presentations into conversation. If you want people to see that you are ready for your next level up in your career, show them that you're actually able to have a conversation, not hiding behind the slides or making the slides so heavy text that no one can actually understand what's on there. And what we want to encourage everybody to do is if you can actually come in without any slides, good for you. It's okay to basically say, we're here to talk about 3 things. I'm going to walk you through each one of them. And then I have one ask of you by the end of this meeting. We need to decide whether we're going to fund this project or not. And if we're not, I need to know why. It doesn't require 15, 20 slides of very heavy text. Sometimes it's a very simple conversation. And that's what we're forgetting. And I'm helping a lot of my clients bring that to the forefront. What is the essence of the conversation that you want to have? And if you come in with that confidence, all of a sudden people say, my goodness, what happened to Mo? I mean, he was so confident, very calm. He spoke very clearly. I understood what he was saying. So those elements will show up when you speak that way.
Ash, have you done a TED Talk on this? Because if you haven't, you need to.
It's on the plan.
Well, good. We'll make sure that I get an invite to that because I've got to see this. I was thinking everybody needs to hear this. I'd like to talk a little bit more. You mentioned seasons of challenge. During these seasons of change, how can leaders hold on to presence while still inspiring trust in others?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We've seen from research that executive sponsorship is a key indicator of project success. So to your point, people want to see the top leaders who are sponsors of a big initiative. They want to see them being very consistent and being strong believers in what will happen in 6 months from now or a year from now. So what we basically encourage leaders to do is we want them to understand what is the story behind the change. Why are we changing? What are the benefits at different levels of the organization, strategic benefits, operational benefits, as well as benefits for those individuals in the audience. and then developing signature talks that they use wherever they go within the organization. We encourage them to get out in front, go talk to people individually, go talk to people in groups. So to your point, Mo, I think what happens usually, a lot of leaders, they speak on the front end of it. They basically then get lax, they get lazy, they think, oh, I already told them. And the funny thing about change, people want to hear from you all the time because they start to worry, is it going to happen? And if they don't see you talking about it anymore, they think, oh, maybe you're now on to something else. So a big part for us to achieve success with any big change initiative is to make sure that we're constantly talking and reminding everybody of what that promised land looks like, why it's still exciting, because people want to see that excitement sustained across that timeline. So as leaders, we highly recommend also that you look for helpers within the organization who can become champions that can help you amplify that message. And we think it's always a wonderful thing to happen when you're not the only one who is trying to encourage everybody to believe in that promised land. We need other people to be speaking and highlighting the same message. And we need to know that it's not something that you do once and walk away. We need sustained sponsor leadership communications across the board. A lot of the meaning book as well as the speaking secrets book, a big part in the conversation there is to communicate consistently and just keep up that momentum. It gets tiring, but that's really where you want to develop and recruit other helpers.
Yeah, and Ash, I mentioned, you do have a couple of books, and it's fascinating when you read Public Speaking Secrets of Silicon Valley Executives. I want to hit that one first. What gap were you seeing in how leaders approach public speaking?
Well, the main gap is reminding them that one of the most fascinating things about human beings is the fact that our emotions travel a whole lot faster than anything we say. Your facial
Mm,
expression, body, your posture, all of those signals are basically firing out messages at very high speeds. So I built my
yeah.
whole practice on this idea of becoming chief excitement officers, that if you want people to believe what you're saying, the very first thing before you come in the office, before you get on that Zoom or WebEx or Teams conference call, I mean, for the sake of God, just get excited about the topic you're going to be talking about, because this is the first thing that is going to send signals to your audience. So we definitely tell people you need to find 3 sources of excitement in whatever it is that you have to say, because that's going to even help you bridge over if there are risks. If there's a downside to the story, the upside is going to help us get a little bit of wind in our sails to basically say, when we hit these winds, here's what we're going to do. So the whole focus of that book is to basically say, for the sake of God, bring some emotions. Just tell me you're passionate about this. Tell me that you believe in this. This is not just because you want to make sure that you get paid at the end of the month. You actually cared about that. You actually cared about that patient. You actually cared about this grandma. Show me that you cared about somebody, because the more you cared about that somebody, it's going to fire you up. It's going to fire all of us up. And that's really where, you need to start there, because if you don't find that passion, there's something for us to ask you about. Why is that the case? How can we make sure that we bring up the experience of the people that we want to impact to the forefront of the conversation? So it's not just about the revenue or market share. It is about that patient coming in the lobby and getting help as soon as they reach that clinic. And now they give them 15 pages to fill out. I mean,
Yeah.
that has to stop.
Yeah. A lot of people get nervous when they speak. So, is there one principle that you've seen transform even the most nervous speaker into a confident communicator?
I think the one thing is exactly what we were just saying. If you can get yourself out of the equation of why you are speaking, there is a bigger why. Bigger why is it's that patient walking in the lobby. If you focus on that individual, all of a sudden, hopefully, part that is you and that's in the equation is now outside the equation. We want to actually focus on the fact that there's somebody out there that we need to help. That eventually then gets you more focused on something outside of you. I don't have to think about my voice or my speech fillers or whether or not I'm making any pauses, because I'm so passionate about the issue and the purpose that I'm working on, that hopefully those things will help me then say to myself, you know what? You need to stop that noise that's in your head about those things and let's focus more on who are we here to help. If we focus more on who we are here to help, all of a sudden, hopefully, it clears our brain and gets us focused on that individual. Because you're totally right. I think a big part of what happens is we get so much in our head. Are they going to like my shirt? Do I have the right haircut? Are my glasses put in the right way? Am I going to make noise with the coins in my pocket? You got to stop all of that noise and focus more on that patient walking in the lobby. Here are the challenges now. And by the way, I cannot tell you how excited I am about what's going to happen when we implement the changes that I'm here to talk to you about. Let me tell you about the first change. And that's how we get out of our own noise and focus more on what's the challenge that we're trying to solve.
You work with high performing executives in one of the most innovative regions in the world. So, how do Silicon Valley leaders or great leaders in general approach communication differently?
They have figured out that if you want to get anything done, you're going to have to get it done through people. So they have figured out, how do I activate very large organizations? If we think about Cisco, we're thinking 70,000 plus, HPE a lot more than that, Google a lot more than that. So they realize the fact that we have to communicate, and we have to communicate repeatedly and look for ways to amplify the message. So they have figured out that scale at which we have to communicate and the frequency is very critical. As we said earlier, you do not expect that you speak that message once and think it's going to go down all the way through the 50, 60,000 employee organization. You're going to have to think of ways where you develop the message, you communicate the message out, and you do the best you can to recruit a network of speakers that will help support you along the way.
Yeah, and that's incredible to have it work at such a large scale, big companies. What about those of us who have smaller companies? Can those strategies work for the everyday leader who doesn't have a platform like one of those huge CEOs?
I think in that case, and I've been in the situation of having a small business myself, and I love what you're saying, because we definitely have to see, how do we shift our mindset and be conscious of the fact that we're dealing with a much smaller team, which means we need to get closer to that team. We need to spend time meeting with them one on one and meeting with them as a group. A lot of the time, I encourage leaders to make sure that they spend some time on a Friday afternoon in what I call a meeting with self. And I think a lot of business owners, highly likely, they have these moments where they're sitting down, having their best, cup of tea or coffee, and thinking about, who do I need to talk to that I haven't spoken to? Because what happens in the pace of work, we may overcycle in one area and we forget that we haven't connected with our HR manager. We haven't connected with our finance person. So we want to make sure that we don't let go of the need to do these one-on-ones, because we know in large organizations, it's sort of part of the corporate setting. They schedule the one-on-ones, they schedule the team meetings. So we encourage anyone listening to us who has a smaller organization, allow yourself even on a bi-weekly basis to make sure that you have that one-on-one time, because that's when our humanity is going to show up. How are you doing? How are the kids? And then get to find out what is the career aspiration, what are the things they want to do, and see if you can help in any way. Because I think in a smaller organization, we might tend to focus more on the running to the numbers and not spend some time building the business up by building more connections.
Ash, let's talk about your most recent book. Now, most recent by a few months. I don't know how you wrote two books in the same year. That's way beyond. But it's Strategic Leadership Mastery, a 90-day planner for effective leadership and growth. What was the inspiration behind this, and what did you hope that leaders were going to get from that?
I love the point you made, because this one actually came as a result of the coaching that I'm doing with leaders, and is very related to what we were just saying about the fact that as a leader, you need that meeting with self. So
Yeah.
what this book does, it basically has 365 pages that are designed to help you either do that meeting with self on a daily basis, even for a few minutes, but at a minimum, we want that to happen on a weekly basis. And the reason why I thought of doing it this way, because as I work with leaders and we talk about the 7 practices of highly effective strategic leaders, we find that the one important practice is the practice of taking time to reflect. This is what this whole planner is about, is to make sure we sit down and not work in the business, but work on the business. Think about, how am I doing as a whole? Am I reflecting on who are my key competitors? Are there opportunity for partnerships? Am I developing the right talent? Are there people on my team that I can develop further? Are there product ideas that we haven't explored yet? So it's more of a strategic thinking exercise that a lot of leaders don't miss out on. I was shocked to read a lot of Harvard research that basically tells us a lot of business owners, a lot of CEOs, they don't take a day off, they don't take vacations. And what this planner is about is to basically say, believe me, if you take some time away from the noise of the day and get time to think about the business, get time to think about you and what you could do for the business, the dividends that you're going to get out of that, a whole lot more amazing than you grinding in and out, day in and day out in that business. So taking time to reflect is the best thing that you can do for yourself as well as for your business.
Yeah, the title itself is bold, strategic leader. So, how do you define a strategic leader in today's environment? And how is that different from a good manager or even a visionary leader?
Definitely connecting to the bigger purpose of why we're doing what we're doing is a component that you see in strategic leadership. The fact that they are actually able to help us understand the why a lot more. So they have this ability of talking about, do you know how we're trying to help patients as they walk into our clinic get a much better experience and have much faster service? So they remind us of what that bigger purpose is. And then they come back and say, what we're working on today is the process that happens when they walk in that door. So they have an ability to really help people connect the dots between what's happening today and that bigger picture. So this idea of taking time to reflect helps remind them of that bigger picture is and bigger purpose is. And that then is going to color their communication, whether they are speaking one-on-one or even sending an email. We basically coach them on, make sure you start with the why. What's the bigger why for what it is that you're asking for? So making sure that leaders are strategic is going to then impact others that are working with them, because they will constantly be reminding us of what is that bigger goal that we are trying to achieve.
Can you share a story of a leader or an organization that you've worked with that embodies the principles of this book?
Absolutely. So one VP at Cisco, VP of engineering, a lot of the time when we get on the coaching call, he'd have lots and lots of ideas. And he was surprised then when I said to him, every time you mention one of those ideas, it's actually a new change initiative that you want to fire up and get everybody in the organization working with you on. We started to basically then say, you need to realize that that's what's happening. So what we need to do is pick one, and then we need to go through the grassroots effort of making sure that everybody in the organization first sees the same vision. So we went then into this vision enrollment campaign where he would go talk to people, share with them his thoughts. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I think we need to do. Give them a chance to shape that vision with him. And then come back and realize, oh my God, this is going to start a whole new initiative. That means we need to come together and think about what are the phases that we have to go through. Who are the helpers who are not only going to do the work, but also going to help us spread the message. So we had to think about a whole change management approach where, of course, he is spearheading it, messaging out, but then realizing and understanding that anything that we bring to the table is going to generate a lot of change, especially on the people side of the business. And that's really where we start to build communication that basically lets people know, again, as we said in the very beginning, we've been there before. We had a lot of success in the past. Let's build on that.
During that building process, we're going to hit setbacks and things are going to, it's not going to be smooth. So, what's one of the biggest obstacles that leaders face when trying to implement these strategies?
I think the biggest obstacle usually is you face a lot of resistance. People, of course, after many years of working in a job, they have built expertise. Usually, when we come back, a lot of the time, we don't feel how much of an impact that is when we say to somebody, by the way, in 6 months from now, we're going to use a whole different tool. We're going to use a whole different process. And you know what? You are an expert today. Highly likely tomorrow, you won't be the expert anymore. So we have to realize, right? I mean, that's not fun. That's
Yeah.
not, we had so much experience. And then all of a sudden you're asking me to switch everything out? So at a minimum, we need to understand that that's the impact on a lot of people. Even if we just basically say, I know how you feel. If I were in your position, I would feel the same way. But to come in, you're trying to drive your truck on the freeway like there are no other trucks around is not is not a fun situation. So
Yeah.
resistance will happen and more of it will happen when you send the signals that you don't care. But if at a minimum, we basically say, we actually do care, we understand how much of an impact this is, and we're going to do the best we can to help you get ready for the change. We know that you have been successful in the past, and we know that overnight, you're not going to be an expert in this tool, but we know that over time, you will become as successful as you have done in the past. So now I give them confidence back because I tell them the way you built yourself up and you became an expert in this tool and process in the past, guess what? In this new tool and process, I have absolute confidence that you will do the same thing. So then you give them hope and promise that life will actually be better in the future versus them feeling so insecure.
So, do you see strategic leadership becoming more adaptability than planning, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it's definitely a little bit of both. And I think your experience in doing planning and understanding what's next and understanding what the steps are, that gives you some of the confidence to then be calm and be more composed and be willing to take 2 steps back in order to go 4 steps forward. And I think part of the experience we build is we just get wiser. We understand that someone else, it may take them longer, but we can already see what's going to be happening in a few months from now.
Ash, where can people connect with you and where can they get your books?
So definitely Amazon is one of the destinations. And then LinkedIn would be a way to connect with me. Communicatewithclarity.co is the website where people can learn more about the programs and the services we offer. But definitely, yes, hit me up on LinkedIn and happy to talk to some of the audience members, of course.
My guest has been Ash Seddeek, and he is the author of multiple books. And he's here to help you become a strategic planner, strategic leader. So for my audience, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear to become a better leader. Until next time, Ash, thanks so much for your time. I hope to have you on again, and congratulations on both your books. And I'm sure there's another one in the hopper.
Thank you so much, Mo. Really, really appreciate you having me.